So if I'm starting in color, the one thing you need to choose when you're going and adding a color onto your tube today is what your color scheme is. You need to either pick grayscale, you need to pick warm colors, which are going to be your oranges, your reds, your pinks, or you need to pick cool colors, because if you mix together the warm and the cool colors, it's not going to turn out very well and it's going to look really disjointed. It's going to kind of mess up your illusion because those colors contrast too much. You need colors that are similar in color in order for this to work. So if I'm doing it with color, what I'm going to do is kind of at the edges where it lines up with these wavy lines, I want the shape to be darkest, and then it's going to get lighter as it gets towards the middle or kind of the bottom of the U. So, and that's going to happen on both sides. So I'm going to start right here in the center. If I'm doing this in kind of this red-orange, I'm going to push pretty hard on each little corner here, and I'm doing my best to kind of keep that in. And then I'm going to press less, so the less pressure I put on my crayon, the lighter the color is going to get. And I want to kind of blend them. I don't want it to look too much like a stripe. So I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this better. So I'm just doing a little less here. I'm lightening the color. And then I actually go back where the dark and the medium color touch, and I color over that lightly, very lightly, but that's going to help kind of blend them together. And then I'm just going to keep getting lighter and lighter as I get towards the center. And the center I want to be the very lightest, because that's going to be a reflection, or like light is shining on it. So I can kind of keep kind of blending over where the different colors until it fades. Should go dark to light and then back to dark again. And I'm going to keep doing that. Now to keep those little sections different, I'm going to alternate. So if I'm doing warm colors on mine, that means I kind of did that one a reddish orange. This one I'm going to do in a red violet, and I'm doing the same thing. So I'm making the corners or kind of the edges of this dark. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. Going to blend my two sections together. Lighten it up here. Blend my two sections together by kind of coloring in between them. And then I'm going to create this lightest. And if you notice, I'm kind of coloring in the direction of the curve. I'm not coloring across or up and down like this. And that's going to just once again help it look more and more three-dimensional. Because if it's curved, then the light is going to reflect off of the curve. So I'm going to kind of keep coloring, and I'm just focusing in that direction. So I did that one. I'm going to do one more in the warm colors, and then I'm going to switch to how you would do it if you were using grayscale. So I'm going to switch, and I'm going to do an orange on this one. And it's kind of the same thing here, starting to dark, really push in on the crayon without, breaking it or anything. Kind of color in the corners without going too far into the center, because then I'll just end up with dark all over the place. I'm going to lessen my pressure, so I'm not going to push quite as hard here. And no, the lighter the color, guys, the less variation you're going to have. So kind of that, and then following the U shape still, I'm just lightly kind of coloring towards the center with less and less pressure to blend my colors out. So I've added that. If I was doing that, I would probably repeat. And what I would probably do, and you can have more than 3 colors, but what I would probably do if I were going to finish, and I will, my section here, is I would probably keep these 3 on repeat. So I would do this, and then I would switch back to this reddish orange again that I had up here, and I would probably create a pattern out of that. So doing the dark, fade to the medium, blend those two together, and then using that U shape just lightly. And sometimes you go a little too hard, and that's okay. The one thing to always remember, guys, you can always make your color darker. You can't make it lighter. So it's always better to err on the side of it being a little too light than a little too dark, because we can always add more color and darken it up. We can't lighten it up really very well unless you're using something erasable. So I'd probably keep repeating those all the way down. Now, if I'm going to do with pencil, I'm doing it the same way. You're just not going to have the stripe effect as much. It's going to be a little more solid. So I would do the same thing. I'd use my pencil nice and dark in the corners. So I'm going both corners here, keeping it nice and dark. Then I'm going to just lighten the pressure. Pencil, color pencil, crayon, it's all going to kind of work in a similar way, where the more you push, the darker the color is going to be. So I'm kind of lightening the color there. And then once again, I'm just going to go really light as I'm getting closer and closer to that center. The one thing I'm going to do a little differently with the pencil that I didn't do with the crayon, because the crayon, since it's wax, kind of does it for itself, is really carefully, guys. I'm going to come back in either with my finger, or I can put a tissue or a napkin over my finger. But if you're not careful with this, it's going to make a big mess of your paper. And I'm actually going to blend, so I'm going to rub it with my finger or with my tissue, and it's going to kind of blend it out so I don't have as much of this stripe. The one problem, and you can see it's happening here, it kind of gets all over your paper. So if you do that, you're going to have to kind of go back in, clean up the edges of that before you move on to the next section. And you can always go back in if it's not dark enough and really darken up corners, or luckily with pencil, you could, if it's not quite light enough, kind of lightly go over it with your eraser if you need to pull a little bit of color back off of your paper. So that's how you're going to go through, either with color. We just want to have that value scale, meaning dark, medium to light in the middle, and then back medium to dark again as it gets towards the corners. So I want you guys to try that. Even if you only do one section today, I want you to try it on at least one section when you're done with your lines. And then that's what we're really going to focus on next week, is filling in, and we're going to spend pretty much the whole class next week adding the value to this and getting that done.